Welcome into a brand new season of WarUp on a WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson remotely, thanks to everything happening with the COVID-19 situation. And Jeff, we were fortunate last year. We were able to complete the high school season just in time. Didn't get the All-Star events to happen like the Dapper Dan, which was very unfortunate. But fortunate enough to be able to award state medals before everything shut down.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on the Power Hour, Greg, and I think we forget how fortunate we were to actually have the postseason because a lot of states and even some teams in Pennsylvania weren't able to do that. The WPIAL did really well at the state tournament, so bummed out that we couldn't have the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic because I thought this year was going to be a really big year for Team Pennsylvania and the Team WPIAL. And of course, we lost all of the freestyle season too. So there wasn't really a lot of WPIAL action to touch on over the off season, which typically we spend an episode just going over all the results, Fargo, any other tournaments, Worlds, and now we only really have Super 32 and only a handful of guys there to talk about. So yeah, definitely a little disappointing, but hey, we're making do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, just to be able to have the medals, I think was the big thing, for the high school season. So, you look at a couple of the results that we do have. You mentioned the Super 32, and we had a few WPIL wrestlers get on the award stand, and most notably Vincent Kilkeary of Latrobe. He was your champion at 106 pounds.
Yeah, and you had talked about True Power and how we saw him at True Power as against Dalton Perry a week prior to that, and Dalton Perry is an eighth grader who they've gone back and forth. So Kilkeary was kind of coming off of a loss, and he made a huge statement down in Myrtle Beach. Normally it's in Greensboro. This year, because of COVID, it was in Myrtle Beach. Vinny Kilkeary, because on our way down to Waynesburg, you had said, he's number one in the nation. And he won that spot, number one in the nation, by winning the Super 32. So Vinny had a great weekend. I think that's going to probably translate into him rolling into his sophomore year. He's not going to be able to surprise a lot of people like he did before. So there's that. He kind of surprised a lot of people at the state tournament, but Vinny's the real deal. That was no fluke. That one weekend in March was not a fluke. He's the real deal because we saw it down in Myrtle Beach. He did very well for himself, and that's, you win the Super 32. There's a good chance you're going to be the number one kid in the nation.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about the True Power and all the different WPL wrestlers who wrestled at our event. But yeah, I mean, he wrestled great and able to bounce back from a loss and showing that as well, and being able to come away with the championship victory. And yeah, what an impressive postseason. We talked about at the end of last year to come in now to this season. And just the expectations are a lot higher. He came in not even expecting to make the state tournament, made the state tournament, and then comes away with a state championship. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it all unfolds for him here in his sophomore campaign. As far as other WPIAL wrestlers at Super 32, Mac Church of Waynesburg, another guy who we're going to talk about, had a great showing at True Power. He finishes fourth at 120 pounds.
And that 120-pound bracket of Super 32 was loaded. You had returning Super 32 champion Mason Gibson, a freshman who, again, we saw at True Power, Cooper Flynn, and he was in the finals. Mac Church was in that bracket with Tyler Kasak, who's somebody he saw at True Power. So, and you look at the national rankings at 120 pounds. Pennsylvania is just, I mean, they're really deep at 120 pounds. So, for Mac to come away with a fourth place finish at the Super 32 was huge for him. And Max had a good offseason. He's wrestled a lot of different tournaments throughout the fall. So really good job by him to stay focused and to get on the medal stand at Super 32.
Yeah, especially for, the way he had envisioned a state gold, right? We talked about him and the incoming freshman last year, and just a guy who just had these high hopes, and, it didn't work out in his favor. However, he did end up, still finishing third and then coming back and putting it into the off season. I think that motivated him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it did, and we saw that at True Power. He was able to come out with a win over Tyler Kasak, but he's put that behind him for sure because, as you said, he was gunning for gold. He beat he beat the two guys in the finals multiple times in the season. He pinned Vinny Kilcarry at the regional finals. So I mean, obviously that's a huge setback for him, but I think he's past that, and I think he's focused for this season.
His teammate Rocco Welsh also headed down to the Super 32, and he ended up finishing second place. Boy, one thing we talked about in the match we saw Waynesburg this past weekend, he got a lot bigger, did Rocco.
Yeah, he got a lot bigger, and Greg and I were fortunate enough to go down to Waynesburg to see Waynesburg take care of business against Char Valley. But there's one thing that we noticed, and that was that Rocco Welsh is huge. He really grew into, and he was a big 26 pounder. I think the cut for him last year to 26 was a hard one. So I wasn't surprised. He has a big frame. I'm not surprised at all to see him up at 52, but I was surprised on Friday night to see how big he really looked. In fact, he looked bigger than when we saw him in October at True Power against AHR. So he's
Right.
clearly been hitting the the weight room and the lunchroom.
No doubt about it. But he looked solid. He looked solid. It's not like he was just not cutting weight or anything like that. He looked like a solid there on Friday night. 152 pounds, Grant McKay, who is transferred from North Allegheny, but he finishes 8th place at 152.
And he had one of the better performances down there, and he turned some heads. He upset some guys, and outside of Pennsylvania, he's not really a huge well-known guy, and for him to come away with a medal at Super 32 was really big for him. And as you said, a transition year for him because he was at North Allegheny, Power and AAA, and now he's at Laurel. Not really a quote wrestling program or wrestling school, if you will, but he's looking to build upon that change for him. And really, I think him being in Double A, I think he has a really good shot this year to do really well. And clearly, if the Super 32 results is indicative of that, we're going to see some of that happen this year.
Yeah, Laurel had a great year last year in Double
Yeah,
A for
they
the
did.
WPIAL, and to add McKay to that lineup, I mean that's huge. Do you see him? I mean, do you see him being a state medalist, or can he
I
battle for a state title?
I think for certain he's a state medalist. I would be very shocked to see him not end up on the medal stand. And I think his results were a little deceiving last year. I don't quite think that. I think he took some losses that probably he would have. Maybe if he had another shot, he would have won those matches. And I think he's a good. He adjusts well to his losses, and I think he probably would have finished a little bit higher. But saying that, I think this year he's got a really good shot to finish top 3 in the state. I think he's that good, and really the Super 32 showed that how good he really is. So yeah, I expect big things from Grant McKay this year.
Another WPIL wrestler getting on the award stand at 170 pounds, Sammy Starr of Kiski. He finishes in 8th place, losing his 7th place match in overtime. But Starr, another really good performance for the WPIL.
He had a breakout season last year. We talked about it multiple times on the WarUp podcast last year. Sammy Starr continued that at the Super 32, winning a medal there. He's going down there a bunch of times. Him and Enzo Morlacchi both have had pretty good off seasons. Enzo's been wrestling a lot of different off-season events, and he's looked really sharp, which, for a guy who really wasn't in the lineup a whole lot last year due to a multitude of things, he really looked good in this offseason. I'm excited to see that 1-2 punch of Enzo and Sammy Starr. I didn't think we were going to have it because it sounded like Enzo, who recently committed to Lehigh, was going to be heading out to Wyoming Seminary. He's back at Kiski this year. I'm excited to see him kind of get into true form. But Sammy Starr, great performance by him down at Myrtle Beach, and I think those two are going to be very much a lot of fun to watch on a Kiski team that really is going to have to dig deep because they lost a lot.
Yeah, they did, and we'll see what kind of younger guys can come up and make a difference for the team. But when you have Sammy Starr, you have Enzo, you have Stone Joseph at 285 anchoring some things. You got some key wrestlers for Kiski, so we'll see how they can fill out the rest of those holes. speaking of, we mentioned True Power, and we'll talk about some of the WPIAL guys and how they did, and we'll go in how they wrestled. Mac Church was the first WPIAL guy to go onto the mat. He was the second match of the night. Unfortunately, by the way, I should mention, unfortunately, we were unable to do the Surge, which has been a great opening tournament to kind of preclude the actual official season starting, and wish we could have done it, but we were very thankful to the folks at Tyrone Armory to be able to allow us to come and have the True Power event, and really appreciate everybody who made it such a great success. And speaking of the WPL guys, as part of that, Mac Church, he did wrestle Tyler Kasak, and he dominated the entire match. The first period came out scoreless, but he chose bottom, got the escape, got the takedown, and then he picks up near falls in the third, and it was a convincing win.
He looked really good. We hadn't seen Mac really a whole lot, and since that performance in Hershey, and he beat Tyler at the state tournament. They split matches last year, so this was kind of the rubber match. And man, Mac looked sharp. He looked really good. And Kasak had again, kind of like Mac did. He had a great offseason in the fall, and I say great offseason, but really it was like 2 tournaments that they were at. But they were they had 2 good performances. So for Mac to come out, Tyler Kasak was probably one of the hottest wrestlers, buzzing right around that time. So for Mac to come in and beat him like he did was very convincing. I was very impressed with him. I'm expecting big things from Mac this year, and I think both those guys are probably going to see each other a few more times this year. So, good performance by Mac Church, and that was followed up with Carter Diber, a guy who also had a little bit of a disappointing end to his season last year. I'm not saying he was the clear favorite last year, but he was pretty much the clear favorite at 113 pounds last year at the state tournament. Got upset. Dante Frenzy from Becca comes back to take third. Clearly a big disappointment for him. He was looking for his second state title, but we saw him at True Power. He beat Cole Bisco from Southern Columbia, himself a state runner-up 2 years ago. So, Carter looks to be back in form, and I'm very curious to see where Carter ends up in weight and how he adjusts to wrestling at a different weight.
Yeah, he looked strong, that's for sure. And he came in and wrestled really well, and just really from the get-go with Cole Bisco, the takedown and the 2 near falls, and just kind of cruised from there. I want to go back. We talked about Kilkerry and his loss going right before Super 32. Dalton Perry is a guy who has his number, right? He's beaten him a couple times prior to True Power, but Kilkerry actually came out. He had the opening takedown, chose bottom in the second, got the escape. Perry just got the takedown and took him to his back and pinned him. So, Kilkerry,
right.
It was prior to that fall, it looked like it was going to be Kilkerry's match.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying it was. And those two have they've split some matches. They've been wrestling for a while, but and they're both funky. They're both scramblers. They both do some goofy stuff on the mat. Perry's a big time headlocker. He's always going for the. I mean, he dominates people when he's wrestling. So, I wasn't surprised to see that result. And I'm not saying, Kilkerry was dominated, because he wasn't. He got the opening takedown. He was in that match. But man, that I could have watched that match over and over again. That was a great match. That was a really fun, exciting match at True Power. In fact, they were all really good, but that one really stood out as one of my favorites.
Yeah, I wish we could have seen a third period for sure,
Right.
as opposed to it ending after the second. From there, after that match, Luke Augustine, his opponent had to change because everything with an injury happening.
Last
I believe he
minute
was supposed to
too,
Trey Kibe, right? But Trey got injured playing football, so Malachi Duvall steps in last second, but Augustine looked dominant with a 10-3 win, and Luca looked strong at 170.
And I was talking to Rob Waltko about this. He reminds me a little bit of like a Jared King from Collinsville. I mean, he's really going to come on to his own. I think he's going to be a great college wrestler. I think he is very savvy. I think he's a student of the sport. I think he just loves to improve. And every year we've seen him improve. Last year he had that great run where he placed that Ironman Beast Powerade in the state tournament. Didn't have quite the state tournament I think he wanted, but man, he's going to be dangerous. He's going to be problems at 172 pounds this year. I'm really excited to see how he ends up at Hershey this year, because I think, well, I say that because, well, he may not end up at Hershey the way that they're taking all the, the super regional and that, if you're in a deep deep region, you could be SOL. But I really look forward to seeing Luca Augustine. I think he's going to do really well in Hershey.
All WPIAL matchup, we had at 145, Cole Hammett and Ian Oswalt from Burrell, Hammett from Waynesburg. And those two guys, they were scrappy, right? I mean, they ended up going to double overtime. And, I tell you what, for their part, I mean, two guys who haven't got to see a lot of mat action, getting to wrestle all that extra time, 8 minutes of wrestling, and Hammett pulls out the escape late in the double OT to win.
They were both just dog tired. You could tell they were just, they were
But
really.
they kept scrapping.
No, they
It was
did.
great.
They did. They kept on scrapping, and those two, I think, could go back and forth a lot of different times. So, no, they kept on going. Cole was really excited. He got majored by him at Powerade last year, so I think that was kind of a statement win for him because Cole's a two-time state medalist. He's one of the top guys in the state, recruiting wise. So I think that was a big win for him. And yeah, I know he was pumped up about that win.
Then Max Stout stepped on the mat, and boy, did he impress. A takedown in the opening period on Jack Waymer of Malvern Prep, a guy who came in also with a pretty hot name, but Stout just kind of took care of business and escape a takedown and getting the fall all in the second period.
And I think that just shows how really dangerous Max Stout is because Jack Waymar's a really good wrestler. He's ranked top 5 in the nation, and he had a really good run after True Power, beating a lot of different top name guys in the nation. So for Max Stout, that performance that he had, because he dominated that match. I mean, he was really just doing what he wanted against Jack Waymire, and I think that just shows the levels that Max Stout has taken, and man, he's gonna be problems. I would love to throw him, Lenny Pinto, and Trey Kibe in a bag and just let them wrestle it out because he's gonna be really tough to beat this year, I think.
152 pounds, we saw Jared Kessler taking on Panero Johnson. And boy, we talk about another impressive performance. How about Kessler? Came out, got the escape in the second, a takedown, 2 near falls, and then he picks up another takedown and a pair of near falls in the third. He got a major decision win over a guy who's going to Iowa State and was impressive last year and is looking equally as impressive this year. But boy, Kessler looks strong.
And that was a rematch of the state third place match. Panero was able to win that match, and Panero, he actually wrestled better than Kessler at the Super 32 a week later. He ended up placing at the Super 32. Kessler was unable to place. So I think those two are back and forth. I don't know. That match was a lot of fun too. There was a lot of good scrambles in that. In fact, that's like most of the highlights film that we have is that one, and Panero loves going underhooks, and he's quick, but he's strong. And Kessler was equally as strong and savvy the way he kind of dictated the pace and went to his offense. So Kessler, I think, is really showed a lot of strength in that match. So he's one of the top recruits too. You had mentioned how Panero Johnson's going to Iowa State. I think Kessler is a guy who a lot of Division I coaches are going to want to have on their rosters.
Oh, no doubt about it. He's been successful his whole career, and I'm excited to see what he has in store for this season. The next match was an all-WPIAL matchup, Dylan Chappell and Joey Fisher. Close, as expected. Both guys, riding really well, but Fisher comes away with a 2-1 win.
And I'd mentioned about the Kilkeary and Perry match being a very entertaining one. This one was even, just as great entertaining-wise. Joey Fisher he wrestled really smart in that match. Dylan, I think, was a little tentative. I think he would like to open up his offense a little bit more. But those two could wrestle 10 times, and it's 5-5. Those each of them are very, very close. So
absolutely,
I think we could very well see that again this year.
No doubt about it. AJ Corrado then took on Eric Gibson, and obviously Gibson in the news a lot more because of his transfer and everything he has going on. But he looks strong as he ever did on the mat. And Corrado, I think still Corrado is trying to get in wrestling shape a little bit too. I mean, he's still playing football at that time when the True Power happened. But Gibson took it to him with a 12-3 win.
Yeah, he really did. And they had wrestled earlier in the summer, the off season, and it was a little bit tighter. It was definitely tighter, but Eric Gibson was on a different level that night. So yeah, both the Borough wrestlers were a little disappointed in their performance, but it's no shame because Eric Gibson's, I mean, he's a Cornell recruit. They're both going to Ivy Leagues, both going to be competing and getting a good education. So no shame in that match against Eric Gibson. Then those two could wrestle multiple times again this year as well, being in the Southwest region in Double A.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be quite a few matchups between the two. And then the final matchup featuring WPIAL wrestlers was an all WPIAL matchup at 155. AHR taking on Rocco Welsh, and AHR with a 4-2 win.
And that was a good. And the last time we saw them wrestle, it was at the Surge Finals, where that was 113 pounds, so 30 pounds later, and a couple years. And he really wrestled. Ali did. He wrestled a smart match against a guy who was probably still trying to find his sea legs up at 152 pounds. Ali looked really good, and we're going to talk about him a little bit about this weekend, but these two I expect to wrestle multiple times this year because I can't see Ali going down lower than 52 this year. I'm really excited to see these two go at it because they put on a show. And that was it was a low scoring match, but a really good match between the two of them. So, Matt, we talked about with Mac and having coming back from a disappointing season. Not saying Rocco was disappointed in finishing second to Curtis Phipps, but I think he's out to prove something this year. He was a runner-up at Super 32. I think he's going to make strides this year, even up, a significant amount of weight.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he got the opening takedown on AHR as well before giving up those 3 near falls in the second, and then Herrera Rondon getting the escape in the third to win that one 4-2. So, yeah, absolutely was a great showing and a great night overall. It was a lot of fun at the Tyrone Armory for True Power. But once that happened, it was like, okay, are we going to get this wrestling season underway? With the full expectation was we were going to be able to have the wrestling season. And then, of course, the COVID spike went back up. And, with that happening, the season got put on hold. The Powerade tournament was still going to be going despite all the other tournaments around, Ironman getting canceled, Beast getting canceled. It was still going to be a go for Powerade. But when the last second restrictions went into place, it got pushed back to the end of January. So we will still have a Powerade tournament. What teams can come, we'll find out. That's still up in the air as far as, who's going to be able to make it. But really the season getting kicked underway here this past weekend. It was the first time we could see some true high school wrestling action.
Yeah, and that was, we saw, so Southmoreland, Greensburg, Salem wrestled right before the shutdown. That was like the only match that happened in the WPIAL. Brookville and Reynolds wrestled right before the shutdown, but that was essentially it. There wasn't really anything else going on. And you look at where the season's going, and already I've been on the phone and text and emails with coaches basically all day today about what their schedule is going to look like. We had multiple teams that just were unable to wrestle this year or this past weekend, even though they were eligible to with the practices. So, of course, the practice schedule is changing because of COVID, right? Whether your school is remote or not remote depends on the school administration and what their guidelines are. But also, if you have a positive test on your team, you're automatically shut down, you're quarantining. So it's so difficult to say what exactly we're going to have because as we've learned over the last year or so, it's a fluid situation. It's always changing. So like you mentioned about Powerade, not really sure necessarily who's all going to be there. I think a lot of teams are still up in the air. I think, Frank Volcano's doing the best he can with the situation that he's dealing with. But I think regardless, we're going to see a lot of top talent at Powerade this year. We could see Wyman Seminary, Malvern Prep, Waynesburg, Canumack, those big name schools that we're used to seeing there. I think we're going to see a lot of talent, but it's just a matter of the level of talent, right? And
Yep.
What tournaments are actually going to happen, and really outside of Powerade, there's not a ton of tournaments happening. This weekend is the Midwinter Mayhem. Our good friend Paul Myers is putting that on in Monroeville, but there's really not a whole lot there's a lot of quad meets and a lot of tri meets, which is good, but again, we're not really sure who's all in all those tournaments, those events.
And you got teams that are in those events and then they're pulling out of events because everything is still fluid. Everything is changing, every single day. So like you said, one positive test, a whole team is taken out for that entire dual meet. And then you're all of a sudden you're scrambling to get another team in. and teams want to wrestle. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, teams want to get together. It's just a matter of, okay, can we make this happen? And then if we can we make this happen, okay, now all of a sudden, where are we going to have this? I mean, the Monroeville Convention Center is fortunately big enough to be able to have those tournaments where you can have the Midwinter Mayhem, and you can also have Powerade, because Powerade is not going to be at Canamac this year. It's going to be at the Monroeville Convention Center.
Right. Yeah, and that's the other crazy thing is venue. So not only are you and here's and you want to throw in another conundrum is the mask. Who's wrestling in masks and who's not. We saw it at Friday night at Waynesburg and Char Valley. Char Valley guys some of them were wearing masks. Waynesburg wasn't. From what I'm told, it's up to the school and the administration to say whether they're wearing masks or not. But it's different from team to team, district to district, conference to conference. I mean, there's guys in central Pennsylvania in the Mid-Penn where they have to wear masks. So what happens when they potentially wrestle a guy from western Pennsylvania and they don't have to wear a mask? Reynolds and Seneca Valley yesterday, they weren't wearing masks. So there's there's multiple layers here of just confusion, a lack of clarity, and really just a lot of things are up in the air. And that's without even talking about the postseason schedule and the postseason conundrum that we're in with 8-man brackets and one-day tournaments. So, man, we and that's part of the reason why we couldn't get on the air earlier is because we didn't really know what we were going to talk about because we didn't really know what to expect, and there were so many different changes. The WPIAL is ahead of schedule. The WPIAL already has their team tournament set, their postseason set. There's a lot of districts and regions out there that don't have any of that set because they're too far away from that. So I will say the WPIAL is much clearer when it's talking about what to expect in the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They've been well prepared. That is for sure. And going into that schedule a little bit, like you mentioned, so in just 1 month, we're going to have the team tournament. And that's crazy to think, but the section dual meet championships right now are set for Monday, February 8th. The team tournament's going to kick off Wednesday, February 10th. So literally 1 month from today, today being January 10th, we are 1 month away from the WPIAL team tournament getting underway with quarterfinals and semifinals. So you also eliminate that opening round as well. And then you have the team tournament finals, which are going to take place February 13th. But then the kicker, which kind of threw me for a loop, and you and I talked about it on the way down to Waynesburg, but the state team tournament then doesn't happen until after individuals. Mm-hmm. So you have the individual tournament then starting that Tuesday, February 16th. So individual postseason getting kicked off underway in essentially a month and a week. You get underway with subsection action for AA as well as AAA on Tuesday and Wednesday. And AA sections will be on Friday, and that Saturday, the 20th, is the AA WPIAL championships. And then you have the section championships for AAA on that Saturday as well. So you have all of that happening, but then the next weekend after that, you have the AA Southwest Regional, AAA WPIAL championships. And then the following weekend, the new kicker, which you're going to have to explain to me, Jeff. You got the AA Western Super Regional and the AAA Western Super Regional. And then the next weekend will be states one day. So AA will be on Friday the 12th. AAA will be on Saturday the 13th. And then the weekend after that is a plan for team states after that. So a lot to swallow there, a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But let's, essentially where it boils down to is you have the team tournament for the WPIAL in the beginning of the month of February. Then it's not till the end of the season is the state team championships. But individuals in between, it's essentially all the individual tournaments you're used to, except you have another one sandwiched in with the super regional.
Yeah, so this is like a science, man. And I've been looking at this stuff for weeks, studying this stuff for weeks, and it's still confusing. But essentially, your assessment is absolutely right. So postseason action is going to be starting very soon, and it's weird because we haven't seen hardly any wrestling, right? A lot of WPIAL schools, a lot of schools across the state have not even competed yet. So there's that. But yes, if you look at team postseason, it will be starting in roughly a month. So the team postseason, you have the sections, you have your districts, and then of course we are going to then be in like a pending or waiting period to figure out. And you had said the week after the state tournament, individual state tournament, is going to be the team tournament. That's not confirmed, so we don't know when. The PIAA has not scheduled the team tournament quite yet.
Okay.
So we're not sure when that is. It's my opinion that could potentially get scrapped if because the PIAA is not moving the winter sports season. So if the winter sports season ends and they are unable to have the team state tournament happen, I think that's just kind of, I don't know if they're going to have it or not. So by them pushing it back, and I understand the reason why they pushed it back, and that was mainly because teams weren't going to have enough time to actually compete, and they may their season could have started and then they're right into the team tournament. So I get why they didn't want to have it right at the beginning, but it puts us in a tough position to say, you're going to have a team tournament and then basically a month break, and then have your team tournaments for the state championship. So it's kind of weird. And we did add in the super region, so everyone who makes it to the super region is for lack of terms a state qualifier. In fact, I kind of wanted to have that super regional change to a state divisional round, because I think that name more appropriately reflects what it is. It's a divisional round of the state tournament. All those wrestlers are state qualifiers, but only the eight medalists will make it to Hershey. And you had mentioned how it's split between AA and AAA. One day's on Friday, one's on Saturday. All 8 of them will be medalists. It's just a matter of what order they finish in. So it's bonkers. It's crazy. It's wild. But man, it's gonna be interesting to see if it all pans out the way that it's set up to, because there's a good chance in a week or two we're talking about something completely different. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all tentative. Everything's tentative. The world is on a tentative schedule right now. So, but that is the plan right now. I think it's a solid plan. I know a lot of people are upset about it and kind of disappointed, but what do you expect? It's so hard to plan.
There's so many limitations.
So many rules you have to follow, and everyone says, well, just do it. I understand people are just saying, hey, let's just burst through these roadblocks and do it, but there's rules here. There's rules in a civilized society. I'm not saying I agree with them, and I'm not saying one way or the other whether it's the right decision or not, but my gosh, we got to have some semblance of a season. We have to have some wrestling, and hey, the parameters. If you're in a tough region, you better get that upset now, because you're not going to make it to the state tournament.
So let's break down a couple of things. First, when you look at these state duels, I mean, do you really think they won't want to get those in? I mean,
no, I definitely think they would want to get them in. I think the plan is to get them in. I just think they're having issues with one venue, right? So are we going to the Giant Center, or are we going to do it more like regional pods, if you will, bring in a couple teams here, bring in a couple teams there, and wrestle all the way up until the semifinals and consolation semifinals, and then come to Hershey? They need to figure out if they're doing that over a week, or is it a weekend? What's the space for the Giant Center? I think the week after individuals is basketball state championship at the Giant Center. I could be wrong, but there's scheduling issues here big time. So I think those are issues that they're trying to work through. All I'm saying is I think on the scale of what's more important, I think the PIAA is saying individuals we have to get those off. The team state tournament may, and again, this is just Jeff Upson thinking, is that they could say, you know what, we're not going to have the team state tournament. We just can't fit it in. But hey, at least we got the individual in. That's all I'm saying.
Award the team state champ is at the individual level, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. The team points are going to be a little wonky because you're only having 8 guys in that bracket, but you could do it, yeah. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying if I had to bet, that's something I could see happen. Or they host it somewhere else. So the biggest thing is hosting, right? It is trying to get locations pinned down. And with the PIAA, they have these contracts with the Giant Center. So this is way above my pay grade for dealing with contracts and dealing with COVID regulations and where you can host them, because a lot of schools aren't hosting events because of that. So are you going to host it somewhere else? I I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that it's not set in stone that it's going to be the week after the individuals, and I know it's not set in stone that's going to be in Hershey at the Giant Center. So we shall see. I'm hoping, and we didn't get the PIAA board meeting on the 6th got canceled because they said there wasn't a lot to talk about. I'm like, are you what? there's plenty to talk about. We're like, well, the governor lifted the orders. Like we're good. We don't. I'm like, you got so much to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't. They had been meeting a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I heard the Monroeville Convention Center might be open for a state duel if need be.
I think people are tired. I mean, yeah, the Monroeville Convention Center is convenient for people that live out here, but there's a lot of tournaments that are being hosted out there.
That's a joke. It was a joke.
Well, we don't joke on WarUp. This is a joke-free zone. Okay, we're strictly business here. It's so I have no answers for you, Greg. Well, it's tentative, to be determined.
Back to business. Well, and here's the tough part about the team. Whenever you mentioned it, I was just like, it's going to be tough for some of those teams. Now you're going to have like Waynesburg being, one of the top in the state. A lot of their guys are going to go into the individual part of the state championships, but teams like Nazareth, Bethlehem Catholic, they're going to have their guys. They're going to keep practicing. But some of those teams that are like in that 5, 6, 7, all the way down range, it's tough to keep their guys interested in keeping weight for essentially. I mean, if you don't make to the super regional, you don't make it to the PIAA championships, you're going to have to keep weight and keep practicing for 3-4 weeks without competing. It's going to be tough to keep. And then you have some of those, like, those people that are fringe wrestlers who are just on the team to kind of fill a spot, especially in AA. If they get eliminated at the section tournament in February 19th, how are you going to keep those guys around until middle of March?
Now you're starting to see a little bit of what I'm saying, and I think you're right. I don't know what that answer is, but I think you're right. There's a lot of challenges that teams and coaches are going to face when it comes to, hey, you went, you didn't even make it out of your section or your district, but we want you to stay practicing and keep on making weight, and then in a month
and keep having the COVID risk
and keep having COVID, and then we're going to bring you back and we're going to compete for a team title. Now, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe guys are going to be like, hey, let's do it. Let's rock. And I don't know. I especially those teams where you said those fringe wrestlers and those guys that, maybe they do a spring sport and they're like, my season's over. So yeah, it's weird. It's tough, but I don't know what's going to happen, Greg.
Well, one other question in regards to the postseason, the Super Regional. Do we know what districts are going to be wrestling in AA and in AAA in those Super Regionals?
Yes, that is set for the regions. So we do know what the Super regions are going to contain. I thought you knew. I thought you knew already, Greg, what they were.
I don't. I want you to fill me in. You're the mastermind.
I don't know about that. AAA. Out here in the West is going to be districts. Well, it's going to be like the Southwest and the Northwest region together. So you're going to have the District 10s, District 9s, District 6, District 8, and District 7 all competing in that super region. So there's going to be a lot of talent there when it comes
Wasn't there rumors that South Central would be in there as well?
Yes, and South Central, yes. So I was getting to that, Greg. So that's
AA. I'm sorry.
No. That's AAA. But I'm talking about AA right now. Yeah. So and yes, that is going to be the West Super Region is going to contain basically all those districts. On the east side, it's a little bit different because of the way that the districts are broken down. And the numbers, so it gets a little confusing because you have District 1 and District 3 that are two large districts in terms of the numbers of schools. So it just so happens that the South Central region is coming out to the Southwest. I really don't know how they're going to do it, other than where they're going to host it at, because it's a kind of a distance between like a Harrisburg and Pittsburgh area. So they're gonna have to find a location that's kind of central, in my opinion, in order to make it kind of fair.
Well, and also adding the north part of it as well. So you're going to have an interesting location for sure. So basically in double A, you got, when you look at the state bracket, if you're looking at the Southwest and the Northwest, that's in double A. And in triple A, you got the Southwest, the Northwest, and the South Central.
Okay, you just kind of you just confused me. So
Double A,
so
Southwest region and Northwest region. Because you have
yes,
4 regions in double A.
correct. Yes. So in there's two super regions, right? There's two. There's only two
Yep.
super regions, right? So you'll have, um, and that's either for double A and triple A. So that's for both of them.
Right. So what I'm saying is in double A, you have one region will be the Southwest and the Northwest, and then it'll be the Northeast and the Southeast.
correct. Yes. I'm sorry.
Triple A,
Yes.
there are 5 regions. 3 will be in one, which will be the Southwest, the Northwest, and the South Central,
Right.
and then the other one will be the Northeast and the Southeast.
Correct. So if you look at double A, I'm just let me say districts because districts may be a little bit easier for people to understand. So in the let's call it the East Super Region in double A, districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12 in one region, and then in the West you have districts 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. Okay, so
Yep.
our West region out here would be basically the Southwest plus the Northwest. That's it, like you just mentioned.
Yep.
Northeast, Southeast in double A. Now in triple A, the East is districts 1, 2, 11, and 12. So that's the Southeast region plus the Northeast region. And then the West region is District 3, which is the South Central region, 4, 9, 6, 7, 8. So that's a big that's the toughest, in my opinion. That's the toughest region, super region of them all, because you have not only the South Central, but you have South Central, Northwest, and Southwest all combined into one. So obviously you have 3 regions in one super region, which is a that's a big deal.
Yeah, no doubt.
So
Hey, yeah, and to me, I mean, I think, if you look at how it piles up with the WPIAL being so strong of late, I'm sure the South Central is like, man, we got in the wrong super region.
yeah, I mean they're probably like, hey, keep us. But I mean in the East you got District 1 and District 11. I mean, if I'm District 1, I'm like, ugh, I gotta go through District 11 to get. I don't know. I mean, I get it, but like I said earlier, you know what to expect. You know who's there and your weights, and you gotta deal with it. So that's the way it is, man. It's the way the cookie crumbles.
Well, before we get into the double A and triple A team rankings and what we have to look forward to on the team side, as well as the incoming freshman report, and also some wrestling action that took place as well, let's first take a moment and hear from Nick Fuller of Tactical Mind.
This is the Tactical Mind, and I work with athletes in the field of sports psychology as a cognitive performance coach. Within 5 minutes of talking to a parent, they make the connection right away that this would be great for my kid to have when they're in college, when they're just going through the ups and downs of high school. Who wouldn't benefit from having more self-awareness? Who wouldn't benefit from having the ability to self-regulate our emotions and our counterproductive thoughts? Who wouldn't benefit from having more optimism, not just on the field, but in life?
And welcome back, and we will now look into some of the teams that we have to look forward to. Let's first start in AAA, and what we talked a lot about, Waynesburg. They're coming in. They are the favorite, not only in the WPIL but also in the state. We got a chance to see him Friday, Jeff, and we talked about it. 13 weight classes. Almost we didn't mention the reduction from 14 down to 13.
That gets
weight
lost
classes.
in the shuffle.
So we lost, you lose one of the heavier weights. So it goes to, instead of going 160, 170, 182, 195, 215, 285, it's now 160, 172, 189, 215, 285. But Waynesburg, they get in a couple of guys, Joe Simone, as well as Xander Faturos, 2 guys who come into Waynesburg. Plus you get, Kai Skepchik, who comes in, and then also just the team that comes back. No, they didn't lose anybody. There's not a hole on this team.
There's not. And people, we thought they were scary last year. They returned the entire lineup, plus they get some huge help with Xander, with Simone, and with Kai. So yeah, they're even better than they were last year. And I think because Colton Stone King was able to come down to 32, he fits nicely in the lineup at 32. I think he is problems all day. They are. I mean, we talked about it on the way back from 106 to 172. They're really, really good. And they're not bad at all from 189 up either, because you have Eli Makel, you have Noah Tustin, and you have Ryan Howard. So I don't see anybody coming close to beating them, not with the power that they have. And I think the keys are Simone at 13, Kai at 6, Xander at 26, because we know what Mac's capable of at 20. And like I said earlier, I think Colton Stone King's going to be a huge boost to that middleweights, because he was at the wrong weight last year. He was going up to 45, 38 because he was in that log jam. But now with Rocco Welsh going above Wyatt Henson, that makes it murder's row. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, Mac, Xander, Colton Stone King, who had a great Super 32 tournament, by the way. He got a lot of national recognition there. Cole Hammett, two-time state medalist. Wyatt Henson, state champion, one of the top 2 kids in the nation. And then Rocco Welsh. And Nate Stevenson, I think, you throw him in there with Colton Stone King, he is such a key. And we talked about how good he looked on Friday night. I really think Nate Stevenson is really going to turn some heads this year. And, of course, you have Luke Augustine. So, I mean, come on. It's not even fair. It's like this is like cheat code good, how good they are.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, and those, it's interesting because you have like a Stone King or a Stevenson. They may drop a match. They're not going to get pinned, though. And if they do drop a match, guess what? You have all those other horses in Welsh and Henson and Hammett and guys who are going to pick up not only wins but bonus points as well. It's going to be tough to beat them. And we tried to go through some of the lineups, and it's just hard to see it. I mean, you like Hempfield a lot this year. Seneca Valley brings back a number of guys, and they look strong still. Can and Mac had, obviously they lose Ninehouse, and, they're bringing in some good freshmen, but they're still in the mix. But I can't see any of them getting to the point where they actually beat Waynesburg.
No, I really don't. And, So yeah, I'm high on Hempfield, but after seeing Seneca Valley, how good they looked at Reynolds, I'm probably going to make a little change. I think right now Seneca Valley is probably the second best team in the WPIAL, although I have the rankings, Seneca Valley after Hempfield, but Seneca Valley, they've got some help too. They've got some good guys coming in. They have some guys that are new to the lineup this year that I think are really adding a boost. I got to see firsthand on Saturday. They looked sharp against Reynolds. They looked good. They looked like they were not in it was their first event of the year. They looked sharp. They looked conditioned. I really like Seneca Valley. But even with saying that, they still have a long way to go to beating Waynesburg, right? And they're going to keep it close in a lot of those matches. There's not going to be a lot of bonus points, and even the big name guys aren't going to get a whole lot of bonus points. And you have some toss-up matches, but the big guns on Seneca Valley are only going against big guns on Waynesburg, right? There's not a whole lot of parity there. I mean, I think there's just a lot of too much depth and too much power that Waynesburg has. But Seneca Valley, I think, Seneca Valley could easily be top 3 in the state. That's how good they look to me at Reynolds. So big on Seneca Valley. I think Hempfield has a little bit of ways to go. They were at the NA tournament this weekend, which, by the way, Greg, we did get full results while we were sitting in the show. I was given full bracket results from the NA tournament just in the nick of time, so we can talk about those. But yeah, Seneca Valley is really good, but Waynesburg, I can't see anyone touching them. I just can't. And like you said, Can and Mac, they're in the mix. I think they're in that top 3 and 4 range. I don't really see how they're going to be able to beat a team like Seneca Valley, but I don't know. I think Can and Mac just they lost a lot, and I don't know if they replenish enough to really get in that mix.
Right. I mean, yeah, you get the clear-cut number one in Waynesburg. You kind of have Seneca Valley Hempfield probably be a great semifinal match as a 2-3 right now. Canamac, I think, in that outside at number 4. But we got to see him wrestle. We haven't had the opportunity to see Canamac wrestle yet. So I think once we do get to see him, we'll see if they climb into that 2-3 mix or if it's pretty clear-cut from Waynesburg and then down to Hempfield, Seneca Valley, and then into where you see Canna McMillan, and then even talking about North Allegheny, who had a lot of young guys coming in, Connellsville with some younger guys coming in, and then even Kiski, with some of the horses they have. So I think that's really where you're at as far as standings and rankings in AAA right now.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a great point about North Allegheny. North Allegheny had some guys. They have 3 champions at their own tournament. I think they're better than advertised. I think they are going to be a lot better than what we thought maybe at the beginning of the year. And like you said about Canamac, we have not seen their lineup quite yet. So my opinion changed drastically after seeing Seneca Valley because we saw a kid from Puerto Rico who's now in America wrestling at Seneca Valley who is a freestyle wrestler but looked really, really good for Seneca Valley. You have a heavyweight that came in from Moon, so they looked really sharp, but I saw them. Canamac, they have some tricks up their sleeve. They have some freshmen that are coming in. They have Martini, who was ineligible last year, so he could be a force in that lineup potentially. And I don't know what weight guys are necessarily going to be at. I have an idea, but I'm not necessarily positive on where they fill in. For example, with Seneca Valley, Chan Shear is down to 45, Alley's up at 52. That I had that flipped, and I think that gives them a little bit more flexibility down in the middleweight. So, like you said, it's all about getting to see guys compete. But I think North Allegheny is in the mix. I think TJ, Thomas Jefferson, could potentially be in the mix. They were also at the North Allegheny tournament. Kiski really took a hit. For how good we've seen Kiski be over the last couple of years, they're really they're going to struggle this year. Not struggle to the point where they're not getting wins, but I think they're really going to be hurting compared to what we've been used to seeing the last couple of years.
Real quick look at Double A. Is it Burroughs to lose again?
I mean, is it ever not Burroughs to lose? I mean, come on. Of course it's Burrow. And Burrow, they looked great at the NA tournament. They have good freshmen. They have I don't know what it is at the water Burrow, man. That area, the New Ken area, they're doing something up there. Because of course it's Burroughs. Who's going to beat Burrow? Maybe Mount Pleasant.
Yeah,
Mount Pleasant's pretty tough.
Anybody's gonna. I was gonna say I don't think anybody's challenging them. I really don't.
No, I don't think anyone's going to challenge him, but I do think. I don't know. Mount Pleasant's tough. I think if Mount Pleasant gets guys in the right weights, I think, they're going to be tough. But I'm never betting against Burrow. I'm not. I'm not going to bet against them.
Yeah, like, the Burgerstown and Mount Pleasant, probably that 2-3, maybe even the Laurel into the mix in that 2-3. But, Burrow is definitely the team for sure. And you talk about some of the freshmen and everything as like that for the WPIAL. The District 7 as a whole had the most on your incoming freshman report, Jeff, 32. And some of the schools, Trinity 4, North Allegheny 3 in that report. So Trinity getting some influx of young talent. Your dad will be happy about that.
Yeah. My dad's super happy. I got the towel here, the Trinity towel, the thermometer, the thermostat towel here, 1956 to 1965. Years my dad wasn't there all those years, but Trinity, yeah, man, they're looking to rebuild, and their youth has done really well. Their numbers have been, and we've been hearing it for a couple years about how their youth has really grown, but we're starting to see it pay dividends for them. I think they still have a long way to go, right? They still have a lot of room to make up. They were at the NA tournament, and we didn't get to see all of the freshmen that we wanted. But the biggest name I think people are going to be looking for is Rune Lawrence, Thane Lawrence's younger brother. I'm hearing reports that he is that good that he's potentially going to compete for a state title this year. That's saying something, So I've been hearing nothing but great things from Rune Lawrence. I think this guy, and Thane was tough. Thane's good. We saw him. You saw him yesterday wrestle Lehigh versus Pitt. Rune is supposedly even better, so that's scary. So not only is there a lot of depth coming out of the WPIAL, You got Bodie Morgan from Trinity, who I'm really high on. But you have hammers, right, with guys like Rune Lawrence, Bodie Morgan. There's going to be a lot of names that you're going to get to hear for many years coming out of the WPIAL. So, yeah, the top incoming freshman was tough to do because it was really hard to determine who was going to be a freshman and who wasn't. Andrew Binney from Canyon Max, another guy I'm really looking forward to seeing. There's a couple from West Allegheny that I'm excited to see. Bentworth has Chris Vargo. So Nick Jones is from West Allegheny. He'll be 113 pounds this year. So yeah, there's a lot of talent coming out of District 7.
Absolutely. And one of the tournaments you talked about and been referencing to the North Allegheny tournament that took place on Saturday, looking at some of the results at 106 pounds, the highest placer was for North Allegheny's Casey Walker, finishing in third place. And at 113 pounds, your champion was from Burrell, Cooper Hornack.
Yeah, and so again, I talked to you about how Burrell just keeps on bringing him out, and he's a freshman. He was on our top incoming freshman report. He looked good. He beat Justin O'Neill from Hickory, and then dominated in the finals, getting a fall in the second period. So yeah, I mean, again, you said, is it Burrell's to lose? And I think that just shows you, because look at and if you look at the results, Greg, I don't know if you had a chance to, but Ian Oswalt wasn't in there, and they still basically took care of business. I was really impressed with Dylan Coy. He beat Ethan Lieben from Hempfield. Dylan Coy's at 120 this year, which I'm almost really shocked that he's only 120 still. But you had Nick Farrow from Burrell in there as well. He ended up taking third. So Dylan Coy, I like him at 120. I think he's going to push guys like Mac Church.
Yeah, it's a huge win for him against Ethan Lieben, and a dominant win too, a 6-0 victory. Ethan Bergen's all the way up to 126, and he looked impressive, winning the championship. And his teammate Briar Priest at 132. So we talked about Lieben and then Bergen and then Priest. There's a nice little 1-2-3 punch for Hempfield to take care of business for them as we look at their team. And then right after that, Lucas Capusta. Finishing as a champion at 138 over Ben Eckenrod of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, and going back to 126 pounds, Ethan won the title over Connor Saylor, but Blake Reiner from Trinity, he's one of the freshmen that we just talked about. He ended up taking fourth. He lost to Nick Gorman from NA. Saylor beat Gorman in the semifinals. So, we talked about, is NA in the mix, and we're seeing some depth here with NA, but also I think Hempfield, they potentially, if they could move some guys down in weight, I don't necessarily foresee Bergen staying at 26 necessarily, or Priest staying at 32, unless Priest got really, really big. He was at 6.
I don't know. 120's loaded, though.
Yeah, 120 is loaded, but, I don't know. Like, where else? Maybe he is a true 32-pounder. He was a 6-pounder last year. But I'm excited to see where the Hempfield team kind of shakes out, or if they're going to stay the way they are right now.
Yeah, and then 145, Max Stedford of North Allegheny gets the title, and he's somebody who, it seems like he's been in high school forever, but he just keeps producing and coming up with good results. You mentioned Bodie Morgan. He finished in fourth place, dropped a 4-3 loss to Cale Bacaizo of Thomas Jefferson. 152, Ty Linsenbaylor. He had a huge win over Michael Zakor of Thomas Jefferson, 12-1.
Yeah, and he dominated that match. I got to watch that one, and he looked really good. Zakor, I thought, when we talk about the TJ guys, you have a lot of those guys that, I feel like have been around for a while. Bacaizo, you have Zakor, Stedford from NA, like you said, he's kind of been around for a while. But Stedford's win was even more impressive because he beat state medalist Carter Gill from Hickory, who placed 6th last year in the state. Stedford had huge wins. He beat Kenny Dushek last year. Rob Walco always likes to remind me of that. And, he is really good. He was always been in a tough region. So maybe this is his year. And I think it probably is. Linsenberger was just dominant at 52. I could see him coming down to 45. And you had mentioned Lucas Capusta at 38. He's a guy who I don't think we've quite seen his full potential yet. I think we haven't seen the true Lucas Capusta yet. He's had some struggles, and I think he's really starting to get into his own now. So, again, he's going to be a huge asset to Hempfield and really a factor of whether they're going to be a team that's going to hang with a team like Seneca Valley.
160, A.J. Corrado of Burl, a 2-1 win over Colin McCorkle of North Allegheny to win the title there.
Yeah, and this was, so McCorkle's a guy who not many people are going to know, and that's the reason is he's from Arizona. Now, we talked about Xander from Arizona, who's at Waynesburg now. These two are actually teammates in Arizona. They both ended up in the WPIAL, which is crazy. They both have ties to the area, family ties. McCorkle was an Arizona State runner-up 2 years ago. Very talented wrestler, but this was our first time getting to see him really compete against Pennsylvania wrestlers. And AJ Corrado had his hands full with him. So I'm excited to see what McCorkle can do. And again, looking at the team race, could NA sneak into top 4? Depends on how these guys compete, like McCorkle. But yeah, really good performance by McCorkle against a very tough Corrado at 160 pounds.
Yeah, and you just wonder if they would have had Grant McKay in that lineup as
right,
well.
Exactly.
They would definitely probably be in that top 4, maybe arguing in that top 3 mix at that point. 172, Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson ended up winning the title. He was dominant in that weight class. And then at 189 pounds, you had Hempfield's Eli Benakoski of finishing in second place, and he had a strong showing. At 215 pounds, I'm still trying to get used to these heavier weights. Brody Lechko ends up winning the title over Ty Banco of Trinity for first place, and a 285 Isaiah Vance doing what he does from Hempfield, winning the title.
Yeah, so you had mentioned Lechko from North Allegheny. He was injured, hasn't been in the lineup, but he was a sectional. He was 17-9 his sophomore year. He was out last year. I'm hearing good things about him. I mean, Ty Banco's tough, and he really beat him up. He was up 5-1, I think, when he got the fall. So, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but North Allegheny's really going to benefit from having a guy like him and McCorkle in the lineup. Ty Banco from Trinity, I'm sure he wants to have that match back. Ty Brophy from Trinity, I'm sure he wants to have a little bit longer of a dance with Isaiah Vance at heavyweight. But Isaiah Vance is one of the best guys in the state, so I'm not surprised by that result. So that was really a lot of what we saw this weekend, other than our duels that we had with Waynesburg, Char Valley, and then, of course, Seneca Valley going up to Reynolds and winning against Sagertown and against Reynolds, snapping their 61-match win streak.
Yeah, in very impressive fashion for Seneca Valley. When you look ahead to this week, the Winter Mayhem is probably the big tournament.
Yeah, that's the big one that we're gonna see this weekend. There's a lot of WPIAL teams there, and I will go through some of them that are there: Pine Richland, TJ, Mount Pleasant, Norwin, Laurel, and Elwood City. There's also, so the way that they're going to do it's 32 teams, but it's essentially going to be 2 different tournaments, 16 teams and 16 teams. So think of it like just 2 different tournaments. That is in Group 1. Those 16 teams are going to be broken down to 2 pools. So you're going to have pools of 8 wrestling, and then the winners, second, third, will wrestle each other. The other tournament, so there's one side that's a little bit more loaded than the others. Group 2, you've got West Mifflin, Freedom, Penn Trafford. You've got Trinity and Kiski area. Those are the WPIAL teams that are going to be competing in there. So, and again, that's tentative. That could change depending on how things shake out. But that's what we have to look forward to this weekend. Plus, Cannon Max hosting a quad with Erie Prep, McDowell, and I believe one other school. So there's hopefully going to be a lot of action this weekend on the 16th. Tournament-wise, there's not, but quads, I think you're going to see a lot of dual meets happening.
And it'll be good to see, just like we talked about, Canamac. We'll see what they look like as a team and see how they're going to shake up. I mean, now that we've seen Hempfield in action, we've seen North Allegheny, Seneca Valley, and Waynesburg as well. Get Canamac out there, and we'll have an idea of where we're at team-wise, because literally 1 month from now, we're going to be calling WPIAL Team Championship matches.
Which is insane to think, because we haven't seen.
We just started.
and a lot of teams haven't started, and they won't start. So yeah, it's a strange is an understatement, Greg.
It sure is. But hey, you know what? I'm just glad that we're able to be back doing this. It's been a lot of is there going to be a season? There's not going to be a season. What's going on? So just to be able to have the opportunity, we talked to both Bill Evans and Joe Throckmorton, the coaches, on Friday, and just it's just good to be out here. Let's
Yeah.
just be honest. It's good to be out here, be able to wrestle. Whatever happens this season, but it's just good to and both coaches talked about not button heads in practice against each other. Not just hey, we're gonna have a match tomorrow. We're not gonna have a match tomorrow. So now that we've got the all clear to start wrestling again, it's just been good to be able to have some matches.
Yeah, I thought Coach Throckmorton had the quote of the day. He said, "These kids are tired of wrestling each other, beating each other up." I'm like, oof, yeah, I can see that. I mean, especially in a Waynesburg room, you're like, you're Stone King or Hammett, you're like, can Wyatt Henson please stop just beating me up? Like, and you're a really tough wrestler. So, yeah, I think it's just great for these kids to get out there and compete. So, we're going to try to stay on top of it, Greg, but it's a full-time job just staying on top of one, results, two, schedules, and who's wrestling, who's shut down, who's not. I know like West Allegheny, they're shut down for a couple days, potentially not till the 20th. So like you have all these different schools that it's all, like I said, it's all up in there. It's all tentative. So, but we're going to try to do the best we can to provide you with all the knowledge that we have. So if you're a coach and you want to let us know what you're doing, feel free to reach out to me, jeff.upson@papowerwrestling.com. Let me know, hey, shoot us a message on Twitter, something, just say, hey, we're wrestling here, we're wrestling there. And we're going to be trying to do live streams almost every weekend. So we did back-to-back streams on Friday and Saturday. We're going to try to do almost every weekend. Next weekend, we are going to be at the Midwinter Mayhem, streaming the finals there. So, we're going to try to do a lot more of that, Greg.
That's right, absolutely, and yeah, just you kind of said it. Let us know, as far as results, what you have coming up. Just stay in touch with us and keep us posted on your schedule and your results, because for us to provide the best coverage possible, we need to know what's going on. And unfortunately, there's not a good system in place or one place where we can go look and find it right now because everything is just crazy. So. Yeah. But thank you all for listening. To our first show for today. We really appreciate everybody and everybody's contributions and being willing to take an hour out to listen to two guys talk about WPIAL wrestling. But we're excited. We got the season here, and we look forward to coming back next week to talk about what happened and get you set for another full week of wrestling. For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening to WarUp on the WPIAL